Sunny Lindley here. As promised, I'm going to give you a tutorial on how to make a protective mask. And my intention here is that these would be provided for healthcare workers. There's a really serious shortage going on for protective masks. I'm not going to be sharing with you all the technical details about how perfectly suited these masks are. We can all research that on our own and figure that stuff out on our own. However, if you have questions about that, you can leave them in the comments and I'll be glad to answer your questions after the video. I just want to get right to the tutorial. So has anybody popped on there yet, Casey?
No.
Okay. So I also want to let you guys know that my sweetheart Casey is filming for me, and he'll be letting me know if you have any questions. He'll read them to me.
Hi, Kelly.
So I can answer your questions. Hi, Kelly. Welcome. So if you'll just bring the camera over here, Casey.
Okay.
Maybe put it on this. So I've created a pattern which if you message me after the video, you'll be able to, I'll send this to you via messenger. But I'm going to be following this as we go along. So the best material to use is going to be a stretch jersey. So you might want to just start with like a t-shirt material is really perfect. It's best if it's 100% cotton, but if it has a little polyester in it, that's okay too. What I'm primarily using is scraps that I have left over from my eco apparel business, and they're jersey cotton as well as some other fibers, and they'll work just great. So the supplies that you need to have on hand in order to get ready is you're going to need some scissors, some kind of measuring device. I recommend like a yardstick like this, or in my case I'll just be using this mat right here. I just used some tape and I marked the point on the mat that is the right size.
Hi, Flora. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Flora. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for coming. So other materials that you're going to need, if you can come on over here, you may want some elastic, although this pattern, the reason I'm providing it is because there's a major shortage of elastic, at least here in the Rogue Valley. So we're making this with stretch jersey pieces that are just cut in strips, and they're going to work just great for our project. You're also going to want to have an iron and an ironing board. And I have a regular straight stitch sewing machine, and I also have a serger sewing machine. This design is really great for using a serger, but that said, you don't have to have a serger to do it. Optional things are going to be some vacuum cleaner bags. This is the filter that you can use that really bumps it up to a more protective level. And I'll show you later how we do that. The other thing that I didn't mention in my Facebook post is what's called a bodkin. If you don't have a bodkin, this is for like threading it through the little sleeves on the side. If you don't have this, a large safety pin will work just fine. So let's get started. Anybody have questions yet?
Not yet.
Okay, great. Thank you, cameraman. So you're going to really benefit a lot if you go ahead and make yourself a pattern, because I'm hoping you're going to make a whole bunch of these. So what I did is just cut the pattern out of some poster boards, so it's kind of stiff. If you have a roller cutter and a mat, that's great. If you don't, you can just use your pattern and just mark it somehow and then cut it with your scissors. So the first one that you're going to start with is 9 inches by 13.5 inches. That is the medium-sized mask in the pattern. The one that's on this mannequin right here is kind of more like a large. This one's kind of a big one. You can see how it goes pretty close to the ears. The major difference between the small, medium, and large is actually your width. It's not that much taller as you get up to the large. Okay, so I've already got my piece cut out. It's right here.
Hi, Marion.
Hi, Marion. Thanks for joining us. The other thing you're going to want is 2 pieces that are going to be 1.5 by 8 inches. Again, this is for the medium pattern. Your 1.5 by 8 inch pieces are going to look like this. And these are going to be for once your mask is assembled, you're going to be putting these here. Now, these are not always measured exact, just so you know, and I'll show you as we go along, but some of this you're kind of winging it a little bit and just cutting it. If you're a really detailed seamstress, that's totally fine. You can, you know, be very, very detailed, but I'll show you why I kind of leave a little wiggle room because it just makes the sewing a little bit faster.
Brent asked if medium is 9 by 13.
9 inches by 13 and a half. And this is relative. So, you know, if you don't have a piece that fits exactly that, it's okay if it's a 1/2 inch off or something, and you'll see as we go along. So the first step that we're gonna do is we're gonna take our piece, we're gonna take it over to the ironing board.
Okay.
So I'm taking it lengthwise, and I'm just folding it in half. I'm gonna actually go the other way because I want this other side of the fabric out. And you're gonna line up your edges just perfect because they're gonna get sewn after the fact. Now, if you want to, you can go ahead and serge these lower edges first. It doesn't matter which order you do it in, really. So you're folding it in half. You're just gonna press the folded edge. My iron's not very hot yet, so it may not give me a very good crease, but that's not super important. Now, these are just ordinary twist ties. You can also use pipe cleaners. Pipe cleaners work just fine as well. But you want them to be about this long, about the same as a twist tie. We're gonna insert that up in here. Now, if you come over here, I want to show you what it is we're doing. Right now, we're assembling, we're putting the wire in the bridge of the nose. Okay, we're just going to sew that right into there first. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to put it in there, kind of centered on my fold line. Now, Casey had a great idea today. He said, you know, you can just use 2 twisty ties, fold them over onto each other, and they'll be stronger. And I think that was a really great idea because it is nice to have a pretty strong little nose wire to really clamp it down tight. The reason I'm probably not going to do that, though, is because this is all the twisty ties I have in my household, and I want to be able to make this many masks instead of half as many. So, okay, so once you have your twisty tie in there, you're going to pin it. So you want to just feel right here for where the end of that twisty tie is, and basically you're just going to point at it with your pin so that you know where to sew. So this is just like an arrow saying sew it right here. Then feel for the next edge right here.
Hi, Bren. Hi, Ruby. Hi, Sarah. Hey, Danielle.
Hi, thank you so much for showing up, all of you. I'm so glad to see that there's so many people that want to make masks. So then you're gonna pin right here, and that's just so that when I'm transferring it, it doesn't, you know, creep down and get lost. It kind of just shows me where to sew, and this pin is also keeping it from shifting this way because you want to make sure this edge stays really well lined up. So now we're gonna go over to the straight stitch sewing machine. Now, if you're familiar with sewing, you may know that you typically don't sew stretch knits with a straight stitch, but this particular part is not going to get stretched a lot, so a straight stitch is totally fine. So my needle is here. It's not in the center, see? It's over to the side. So I'm gonna line this up right there, and I'm gonna get it right on the edge. And I actually forgot to put my glasses on, so I'm gonna put my glasses on. Okay, and I'm just gonna stitch this about 3 stitches and a back stitch. And then I'm gonna, you can see how far that is. It's about the same distance, maybe as wide as your finger, just enough to get past where that twist tie is. And I've been gauging it by, it kind of just needs to go right along the edge of your presser foot there. And then you're just gonna sew right along here. So just kind of making a little sleeve for that twisty tie to live in. Let your needle stop right where your pin is. Couple more stitches and a back stitch.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for joining us. How many people do we have on there now?
Looks like 16.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Yay. Okay, so now we have a nice little sleeve that our little twisty tie is in to bend over the nose, okay? So I'm going to take these pins out. Now I'm going to go over to my serger. And I want you to know that we're going to serge this edge. You don't have to use a serger. If you only have a straight stitching machine, it's totally fine. What you can do is just do a zigzag stitch on your straight stitching machine. You just want to finish off this edge. So this is my serger, and the stitch that I have on here, let me read it to you here. I have been a seamstress for more than 20 years, but I actually don't know all my sewing terms. I'm totally self-taught. So this one's called a 4-thread overlock with an integrated safety seam. And you'll see perhaps that I'm going to snip the edges off of these, and some people would say, oh, well, they could fray and you might have to do something with that. But actually, I've experimented with this one a lot, and it's not going to fray on the edges if you don't finish the edges. It'll be perfectly fine for these masks. So I'm just going to sew along here. Is that working all right?
Get it.
So I'm, again, putting my fabric, I'm not actually intending to cut any of it off, but I'm just putting it right on the edge because this edge was already cut perfectly, so I want it to stay exactly the same size. Oh, and one more thing. This is set to gather. So on my machine, it's actually gathering it, which the number is 2. So it's actually going to kind of pull the fabric together because this is the bottom part of the mask right here. And you definitely don't want this to be baggy. You want it to be as kind of pulled in as possible. So we're kind of using a gathering on that because we're working with a stretch knit. And you can probably see how it's just kind of puckering it just a little bit. This is what we've got now. I'm going to sew the other side. Okay, so you can see what it looks like now. I'm going to pick it back up like that. Now, at this point, it doesn't matter which is the front and which is the back, but usually what I will do is I'll take a look at it, and this part of where they meet up, usually one side will kind of be overlapped a little more than the other. So I would decide that this is the outside because it overlaps just a little bit more than the other. Okay, let's take a peek at our instructions again. So we've just finished this whole step. We just sewed that. And then we sewed these outer edges. And now we're going to do this part where we're going to do these little gathers. Okay? I'm going to do this back over at the ironing board again. And so for this part, you might want to have like a chalk marking, or you can just choose to not measure. So with stretch knits, they're very forgiving, and so in the interest of time, I'm not going to measure. But if you wanted to be really precise, what you would do is go ahead and measure to your 1 inch mark. And basically what you're trying to create is 2 sections that each have 1 inch, okay? So if I was gonna do it to a T, I would put it there and I'd mark that. And then at this point here, I would mark that as well. Okay, and that would give me 1 inch. And then I would do it again here, kind of centered between the field. But I'm actually just gonna wing it. I've already made about 10 of these and I feel pretty confident. So what I'm gonna do is just grab it like this and I'm just gonna fold it up. So you see how that is right there? And then I'm gonna creep my fingers over and I wanna pin it about here and here. Not close to the edge because we're gonna sew it there, so we don't want our pins in the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin that to hold it in place. Now you notice that this fold is facing up. The next one, we're gonna fold it down. Okay. And again, pin it away from the edge. Does anybody have any questions yet?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay, awesome. All right, so now we have that pinned. Now I'm going to take it over here, and ideally you've already got your other pieces cut out. But now you're going to take these 1.5 by 8 inch pieces, and you're going to find that these are significantly longer, okay? Now, if you're sewing on a straight stitch, you might want to go ahead and line this up. So this is the front of the mask, and we're putting the folded edge toward the center, and we're putting the cut edge toward the outside. If you are sewing on a standard sewing machine, not with a serger, I would recommend trimming this to the perfectly correct spot and pinning it. And then on the regular machine, I would do a straight stitch along here and then also do a zigzag stitch after that to kind of close it up, okay? On the serger, however, I'm actually going to leave about a thumb's distance overlap on each side. So what you cut here, it's not exact. It's intentionally got a little room left over. So again, I'm folding that piece in half. I'm putting the cut edge to the outside. If I were using a standard sewing machine, I'd cut it right there, but I'm using a serger, so I'm going to overlap it a little. You'll see why in a minute. Just makes it a little cleaner. So I'm not pinning these on here because I'm really handy with my machine and I know I can navigate it, but you might want to pin these. I find that the pins get in the way. We're going to go back over here to the serger. I'm going to tilt this a little bit. Okay. Now on the serger, the reason why I had this overlapping is because you're actually going to get a cleaner edge where these two pieces sew together if you start here than you would if you had cut it perfectly to the edge, flush. So I'm going to kind of get that lined up. And then this time I am letting it cut off just a little bit. How I kind of pulled on it just a little bit at the end there. Okay, so I'm just going to check it, and that looks good. We're going to trim it afterward. Now you may choose to do this with a matching thread. I'm using a contrasting thread because I want you guys to be able to see the stitches. to show you why I leave it long, because sergers always are going to stretch, especially when you're working with this stretchy fabric. And so by doing it this way, I can actually snip it off right there really clean. And that part actually touches the face, so it's really nice if it's not bulky and there's no excess stuff. And we are more than halfway done. See, they don't really take that long. Okay. Now I'm going to come back over here briefly, and I'm just going to check this. Take my pins out. I'm going to show you what we've got going on so far. So this is the part that our straps are going to go through. Here's our little nose part that goes over the nose. And then inside we have this little pocket that opens up that you are going to be able to put a little filter in if you want to, or if the nurse who gets this wants to. Okay, I'm going to leave this here for now. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to have a piece. Just want you to see the instructions here so you know what I'm talking about. This was my attempt at drawing how you're making those little tucks. So hopefully that'll make sense to you. And then you're sewing on the little sleeves. Now, the measurement for the ties that we're going to use is 20 inches by 1 inch. So that's what this is. And the advice I want to give you is that if you're making this out of a t-shirt, let's say, I would say it doesn't really matter if you're on the grain this way or if you're going this way. For these little stretchy ties, it really doesn't matter. So what I would do is just take a piece of fabric and fold it in half. So this is folded in two, and then fold it again. So maybe you're starting with a rectangle so that you have 4 layers, and then you can just cut strips 1 inch wide, okay? So if I was going to try and make 20 masks, I'd just go ahead and cut 40 of these ahead of time, because then it's ready to go. So once you have your strip, you're going to be amazed how long it gets when you give it a good stretch. So just stretch it out. And go ahead and look at that close up, Casey. See, it's just going to curl up on the edges. Okay? So now we're just going to take this, and I'm going to use the bodkin. But I want to remind you, if you have a large safety pin, when you're only going through a sleeve this big, a large safety pin will work just fine. And if you don't have that, you can also use a chopstick, works really good. I'll just pretend this is a chopstick. If you're going to use a chopstick, just poke your chopstick in about there, fold it over, and then just start cramming it through. Really easy. But I'm going to use a bodkin because it's very, very easy. Okay, so for this design, you want to have a loop at the top and the loose ends at the bottom. That way you can put it on by having the back part just kind of pop up right here, and then you can tie it around here, and it's fully adjustable, which is one of the things I really like about this mask. So I'm just clipping that on there. And pull that through.
And the loop goes at the top where the nose.
Yep.
Okay.
The loop goes over the nose part, about like that.
That's what ties behind your head.
Yeah, it ties down
gotcha.
kind of like by your neck. Now there's another way that you can do these. If you're making it for yourself, then you know you obviously have the option. I do it this way because of how much adjustment there is, and I just really think it's great when there's that much adjustment for all kinds of different sized people and different hair and different whatever. But the other way that you could do this is to put a piece of elastic like this through this loop, and you would tie that, ideally wherever you tied it or sewed it or however you joined that, you'd hide that down inside here, so you'd go whoop like that. The reason that I'm not going with that design is that you have to have exact measurements of the width of the mask in order for it to go around the person's ears and to sit as snug as it needs to be to let as little air in and out as possible. So I'm favoring this style because it's so adjustable. Okay, so after you've pulled it through, then just tie a little knot on the end. And the reason I'm tying the knot on the end is just so it's not so easy to accidentally pull it through, because that would be a real pain if you're, you know, working under pressure and you accidentally pull that through. Okay, so that is what we have so far. I think it's pretty awesome. It opens up around the mouth. It pinches down over the nose. It's got the little pocket here to slide a filter in. So I'm going to show you one more time what that looks like on the mannequin, and then I'm going to show you how to make a filter, which is an optional part. So as I understand it, a lot of the nurses and healthcare workers are actually collecting vacuum cleaner bags and making their own filters so that when people are donating masks that have a pocket, they have their own filters and they can replace them. So I think that's awesome. I think it's also awesome how incredibly many people there are that are contributing to this effort. So this is what we've got so far. Some people I've noticed are wearing them down lower like that. That's fine. People can do it however they want. So that's what we've got so far. So now we're going to cut out vacuum cleaner bags. So Casey and I are really good hunters at secondhand stores, and we happen to find vacuum cleaner bags for like $1. They didn't work for our vacuum, but you know what? Now I know why we bought them anyway, because we needed them for this. So I'm just going to start by tearing the top off of here. You don't have to be really careful about how you do this part because you can't use that end of the bag anyway. So just get it torn off. The part that is important in reusing your vacuum cleaner bags is to pay attention that the part on the outside that's printed, that's the part that needs to go on the outside of the mask. Okay, so think of it this way. You want, with a vacuum cleaner bag, the air needs to be able to get in, but not out, right? So likewise, you want the air to be able to get in, so the printed side out. Now, when we disassemble this vacuum bag, what you'll find is that there's this paper on the outside, and then there's this stuff on the inside. Now, in some cases, it's going to be attached, like where there's this seam, it's attached. But some of the pieces, like this one, it's not actually attached, and I could just peel it right off. I'm leaving the paper on for 2 reasons. Number one, because then I can mark the piece that I'm cutting so that it actually says what it is in case the person using it really wants to know how protective is this device. So I'm writing on there, you know, what my vacuum bag was. The other reason I'm doing it is because this material, you really can't tell the difference between the front and the back. And it's important which is the front and which is the back because the air is intended to go one direction and one direction only. So you don't want to get that confused. So I'm starting by just tearing a little hole up here on the corner of the bag. Is this coming out okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Christine. Hi, David.
Hi, thanks for joining us. So I'm just cutting around this top edge. You have to be kind of careful because this stuff that's on the interior lining is it's kind of fragile, and if you poke it with your scissors, it'll tear or kind of want to come loose. So I'm just kind of carefully trying to cut around. If you've ever used grocery shopping bags, paper grocery shopping bags for wrapping paper at Christmas time, then you're already familiar with this because this is really doing the same thing. It's like taking the bottom off of a grocery bag. So see, it wanted to separate there, so I'm just making sure I got my scissors under it. Okay. Toss that piece aside. Now I can kind of open this up. And this is folded here, that whole part's not going to be usable. So we're just going to cut that right off. Now again, including these with your masks when you donate them is optional. If you don't have vacuum cleaner bags, that's just fine. People can find their own filters. They might even have something else they'd prefer to put in there. So again, I'm being careful about what my layers are here, and I'm just going to now cut it along the side. But it kind of wants to fold up and stick to my scissors. It's kind of a weird material. It's like almost a little clingy. That's one of the reasons I'm finding it's better to leave it attached to the paper part of the bag, because otherwise it's so flimsy that you wouldn't be able to put it inside the mask. Because it's just, it's almost like cotton candy or something. It's like webbing. Okay, so now I'm opening it out. Now I made a pattern for mine, and you know what? I actually don't remember what the size was, and I was going to write it on here, so I'm going to do it now so you'll have what you need on the video. So this is 3.5 inches by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So basically 6. This is like 6 1/4. You don't really have to be exact. You just don't want it any wider than this because it won't fit in the mask. Okay, so we've got 3.5 by 6 1/4. And then I'm not going to go through and cut all of these, but you get the idea. So you're going to kind of look at, okay, how many can I get out of it if I go this way? So there's 1, 2, 3. Well, maybe I could get more out of it if I go 1, 2. Well, yeah, looks like I can use all of it if I go this way. So you can cut out your filter. And then, like I said, I highly recommend that you leave the paper on even if it kind of wants to fall off, and that you write on it what it is so that when the recipient gets it, they know what kind of filter it's coming with. Okay, so there's 2 of them. I would probably go through and cut them all just so that I kind of have a good assembly line thing going on. With mine, I'm writing on them with a red pen. And then show you how to slide one of these up in there. So again, it's very important that you look that the part of the mask that faces your face is the part with the stitching. So I'm laying mine down with the face side down. And then you want the printed side facing out. So if you could see it through the mask, you'd see the printing on your face, okay? And then here's my trick for getting them in there, because it's a little wonky because of all these folds. So what I'm doing is I'm opening this up like that. And then I'm taking the bottom edge of my filter and laying it along the bottom edge like that. And I'm just kind of holding it in place. And then I open it up and I just tuck it in like that. Because this stuff is a little sticky, it's not easy to move it up and down vertically when you put it in there. Okay, so now that's inside. Then I just grab the sides and kind of give it a little tug, sort of refix my little creases here. It's not going to be totally perfect because once the filter's in there, everything doesn't line up absolutely perfectly. And again, it's like a little sticky, but you just kind of do your best. That's pretty darn good. And then remember that when the person puts it on, I'll just show you with this one, it's got a filter inside. When the person puts it on, these creases are going to open up. Okay, so I'm flattening it out like this because I'm going to put them all in a bubble mailer and mail them. But when they put it on, it's going to open up like that. Okay? So, that is our mask. Should we put it on our mannequin so we can see how good we did?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Where'd she go? Oh, here she is. okay? And remember, if you send me a private message, or just leave a message in the comments and I can get in touch with you that way, then I'll be happy to send you this pattern that I made. It'll take me a little while because I'm not 100% complete with it, but hopefully this tutorial has helped you to understand some of the details that are hard to write. So, I'm gonna put it on there like that. Tuck it over the nose. Then you can pull this part kind of tighter. See, pretty good coverage. Right. I like the colors on this one too. So these are pretty breathable too. I tested it with a bunch of them, and the 100% cotton t-shirt material and the vacuum cleaner bag actually are pretty breathable. And it's interesting, if you experiment with the vacuum cleaner bags, it actually it doesn't breathe well if you put it in the other way. So well, I hope this tutorial has been really helpful. Has anyone got questions?
Yeah, one question. Let's see. There's a proper direction for the filter to go, right?
Yes.
Yes,
so to show you that again.
So the air flows in one way.
Right, so when you cut your bag open, there'll be the side that has paper on it, and then the other side has this kind of sticky, filmy stuff. There's a specific name for it. You always want the printed side would go out, so this way.
You don't want the ink toward your face, let's say. That's a good way
you could think of it that way. And I'm recommending that you leave the paper on when you cut your pieces so that you know which direction it goes, because this part of the material is actually, it's different on one side than the other.
Oh yeah.
You can barely tell, but it's like almost looks a little bit like a fiberglass or something on this side. That's not what it is, but and then this side has kind of like the little texture to it. So again, paper side out, then you can breathe in through it quite well. When you breathe out, it's not going to breathe out. But again, I don't want to get too much into the details and technical stuff, but those things we can totally discuss in the comments. So I'm super happy to have had the opportunity to share all this with you guys, and please feel free to leave questions in the comments. I'm glad to answer everything that I can. I can drop you some links. Happy to send you the pattern. And I just want to remind everybody that we are all in this together, and we'll just keep reaching out and helping each other out. And I would encourage you to follow me on my social media. My website is sunnyjlindley.com. And you can follow me on Instagram, same name, and also on Facebook, Sunny J. Lindley. Thanks so much. See you guys all soon.